Agents and editors at publishing houses see many manuscripts cross their desks, and the first part of your submission they're going to read is your one-page synopsis in which you'll include the word count of your story. When you stick to the average word count of your genre, it shows that you've done your research and that you understand the market that you're trying to fit your story into. If you're coming in way over or way under the average word count of your genre, this could mean the difference between your manuscript being read by those agents or not. Welcome to the Fiction Writing Made Easy podcast. My name is Savannah Gilbo, and I'm here to help you write a story that works. I want to prove to you that writing a novel doesn't have to be overwhelming. So each week, I'll bring you a brand new episode with simple, actionable, and step-by-step strategies that you can implement in your writing right away. So whether you're brand new to writing or more of a seasoned author looking to improve your craft, this podcast is for you. So pick up a pen and let's get started. In today's episode, we're going to talk about your story's word count. Writers ask me all the time, how long should my book be? Or if I'm writing a fantasy novel, how long is too long? Or can my contemporary romance be under 50,000 words? Or do I really need to worry about word count when I'm just starting out, or is that something I can deal with later? And all of these are great questions to ask. There are also super common questions to ask, especially for those of us who are just starting out. And believe it or not, your story's word count does matter in each and every stage of the book writing, editing, and publishing process. And today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. I'm going to share with you 4 reasons why you should have a target word count in mind for your story, and how having a target word count can help you in each part of the process. But before we dive in, let's make sure we're all on the same page about how many words make a novel in the first place. Generally speaking, a novel is defined as any story over 40,000 words, but the average novel is usually somewhere between 80,000 to 100,000 words. Now, technically, there's no maximum length for a novel, but there are guidelines that you can follow to determine whether or not your story is the appropriate length or if it's too short or too long. These guidelines are determined by the genre and the target age range you're writing for, so it's always a good idea to know what your genre is and what age range you're writing for before you land on a target word count. And if you need help figuring out your genre, you can go back and check out episode number 2 of this podcast, where I walk you through how to choose the best genre for your story. I'll put that link in the show notes for you in case you haven't heard that episode yet. So once you've committed to the genre you're writing in and age group you're writing for, you can then come up with a target word count to help you as you write, edit, and publish your book. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to walk you through 4 ways your target word count can help you do this. But first, let me tell you about the freebie for today's episode. As a freebie for this episode, I created a cheat sheet that lists out the average novel length by genre and age range. So if you'd like to download that, you can head over to savannahgilbo.com/words. And now let's dive into the 4 reasons why your story needs a target word count. Reason number 1 is that having a target word count can help you make a realistic writing schedule. And this is important because at one time or another, I think we're all guilty of being a little unrealistic about what we can accomplish when it comes to our writing. I know I've definitely been guilty of this, like the one time I thought I could write an entire first draft of a novel in 6 months while working over 40 hours a week and going through a bout of anxiety and depression. For me, this wasn't a realistic goal, but I didn't know any better, so that was my goal, and long story short, it did not work out so well. So this is where having a target word count comes in. For example, let's say you want to write an 80,000 word first draft, and you know that you can realistically write 1,000 words per hour. That means you can estimate that it's going to take you 80 hours of time to write 80,000 words. For another example, let's say you plan to write 500 words per day, 4 days a week. That means you can estimate that you'll write about 2,000 words a week and that your draft will take about 40 weeks to finish. One thing that's really important to note is that in both of my examples, I said how long it would take you to write a first draft. So that's not including the time spent going back and editing old pages or doing character sketches or fleshing out your story's world. So if you don't like to power through a draft without editing or doing any of these other things, then make sure you plan in time for those things too. As writers, we need to be realistic about how much we can actually get done in a day or in a week. When we're not realistic, we set ourselves up for disappointment when we ultimately fall short of our plan and our goals. And trust me, I've done that a few times and it's never fun. So now I plan the opposite way, where I build in buffers for times when things don't work out or when I need to go back and edit some pages or maybe spend some time digging into the world building for my story or whatever it is that I need to work on. So that's reason number 1. A target word count can help you plan your writing schedule so that you can set a realistic goal for finishing your draft. Reason number 2 is that having a target word count can help you outline your story. And that's because you can use your total word count goal to help you build a framework for your story's acts, the number of scenes within each act, and then approximately where your key plot points will fall. So for example, if you're writing a 100,000 word fantasy novel and you're following the 3-act structure, you can break those 100,000 words into 3 chunks. So typically the first act of your story is going to be about 25% of the whole, while the middle will be 50% and the end will be another 25%. So that means that the first act will be about 25,000 words, the second act will be about 50,000 words, and the third act will be another 25,000 words. From there, you can even calculate approximately how many scenes are going to fit within each act of your novel. So for example, if you typically write scenes that are around 1,500 words, that means you're going to have about 16 to 17 scenes in the first act of your novel. And the way I came up with that was by dividing the 25,000 words that make up Act 1 by 1,500 word scenes. And I like to explain that because math is not my strong suit, and I'm sure some of you out there feel the same way. So that's how I got to that number. You can even go one step further with this by calculating approximately where your plot points will fall within your story too. So for example, the global inciting incident usually happens somewhere around the 12% mark or about halfway through Act 1. If we know that Act 1 is about 25,000 words, based on our example from earlier, we can then estimate that our inciting incident will be somewhere around the 12,000 word mark. Who knew that you could have this much fun with math, right? So that's reason number 2, a target word count can help you outline your draft as well as pace your story properly. Reason number 3 is that having a target word count will help you when it comes time to edit your work. And that's because every genre has a target word count range that you'll be more or less expected to stay within. And of course, there's an exception to every rule, but for the most part, whether you're self-publishing or traditional publishing, you're going to want to stay within the ballpark of what readers and/or agents are going to expect for a story of your genre. So let's say you've written a whopping 120,000 word mystery novel and you're ready to take the next steps. So you research and you find out that mysteries are usually closer to 80 to 90,000 words. Now, this might seem like the end of the world, but trust me, it's really not. Because from there, you can then calculate that you need to edit around 10 to 20,000 words to get your novel down closer to the average books in your genre. From there, you can drill down into your story to figure out what to do next or what needs to be cut, moved, or combined in order to get closer to your target word count. This is not only going to help you become more disciplined when it comes to self-editing, but it will also help you get in the habit of making every word in your draft count too. So that's reason number 3, a target word count can help you when it comes time to edit your work. Reason number 4 is that having a target word count will help you on your path to publishing. And that's for a few reasons. So first, if you choose to submit your manuscript to traditional publishers, you don't want your manuscript to be immediately rejected for either being too short or too long. Agents and editors at publishing houses see many manuscripts cross their desks, and the first part of your submission they're going to read is your one-page synopsis in which you'll include the word count of your story. When you stick to the average word count of your genre, it shows that you've done your research and that you understand the market that you're trying to fit your story into. If you're coming in way over or way under the average word count of your genre, this could mean the difference between your manuscript being read by those agents or not. Now, if you choose to self-publish, I would still recommend following the word count guidelines of your genre because when your book is longer than average, editors and proofreaders are going to charge more to review your work. Not only that, but if you plan to sell physical copies of your book, it's going to cost more to self-publish, and then you'll be faced with the decision to charge the reader more or to take a smaller profit margin on your book. You also need to consider the reader's expectations here too. So using our example from earlier, if most mysteries are around 80,000 words and you self-publish one that's 120,000 words, readers might not be ready or willing to dedicate that much time and energy into reading your book when they could almost use that time and energy to read 2 other books instead. And of course, this depends on your genre, but it's just something to think about. So that's it. Those are the 4 reasons why you should consider having a target word count in mind for your story. And now let's do a quick recap of what each of those 4 reasons were. Reason number 1 was that having a target word count can help you make a realistic writing schedule. And that's because you can take that target word count and then break it into smaller pieces and estimate how long it's going to take you to accomplish each piece. You can then put those little pieces of time on your calendar and know that you've set yourself up with a realistic goal. Reason number 2 is that having a target word count can help you outline your story. So once again, you can take your total target word count and break it down into 3 chunks for the 3 acts. You can then break that further down into how many scenes fall within each act, and then even further into where those key plot points go within each act. Reason number 3 is that having a target word count will help you when it comes time to edit your book. And that's because every genre has a target word count range that you'll be more or less expected to stay within. So from there, you can kind of gauge how much you need to cut from your draft and then figure out a realistic game plan for going about those edits. Reason number 4 is that having a target word count can help you on your path to publishing, whether you're going the traditional route or the self-publishing route. So if you're going the traditional publishing route, you don't want to come in way over or way under the average word count of your genre, because this could be the difference between your manuscript being read by agents or not. If you're going to self-publish, it's going to cost you more to get your book edited and then produced. And if your story doesn't fall within the length of what readers are expecting, that could be a problem down the line for you too. Now, with all of that in mind, the length of your book is ultimately up to you as the writer. As I like to say, it's not about how many words you have, it's about what those words do for your story that counts. So that's it for today's show. As always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in and showing your support. If you want to check out any of the links I mentioned in this episode, you can find them over at savannahgilbo.com/podcast. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show, because there's going to be another brand new episode coming out next week. If you're an Apple user, I'd really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to leave a quick rating and review. Your ratings and reviews tell iTunes that this is a podcast that's worth listening to. And in turn, that helps this show get in front of more fiction writers just like you. So that's it for today's show. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, happy writing.